Hey there, I'm Jo Sebastian. I'm a registered nutritionist and dietitian, and today we're going to be talking about types of diet. Whenever we think of diet, the first thing that comes to mind is losing weight. But the truth is, when we define diet, it actually just means all the food and drink that one consumes habitually, which means that no matter what food or drink that you eat, that is going to be part of your diet, which means that all food and drink that you eat every day is part of your diet. But there are many different diets out there that would require you to change a few of your eating habits or change a few of your food choices, and that's why we're going to get into it, so that we can really understand what are the different types of diets out there. One thing that we want to remember first is that every human being has different needs and preferences. Your needs could be different from mine, and my food preferences could be different from yours. That's why diets are very individualized and specific from person to person. So let's get into a few diets that are very popular so we can understand them more when we hear them. Number 1 is our standard diet. And a standard diet is pretty much the basic diet that most people consume every day. A standard diet would be represented by a balanced plate that has carbohydrates, protein, fruits, vegetables, as well as a little bit of fats. So if we're looking at our regular meals per day, some rice with a little bit of pinakbet and a nice protein source would meet your standard diet. Number 2, disease-specific diets. There are certain conditions out there that do have very specific and rigid dietary concerns and restrictions. So these are diseases like diabetes, hypertension, kidney disease, as well as your cardiovascular diseases. Each disease has a specific requirement and needs that have to be changed in order to help that individual reach their optimum health. So let's say for diabetes, usually some of the recommendations would be to change your carbohydrate sources from your simple carbs like your sugars to your more complex carbs like your rice, potatoes, and your whole wheat and grain. Hypertensive diets would usually recommend you to lower your sodium intake, so changing up the soy sauce for a little bit of low sodium soy sauce, and of course reaching for more fresh ingredients rather than your canned and packaged goods. For kidney disease, it's usually lowering your protein content because your kidney has to work extra time if it's going to be consuming more protein. Number 3, vegetarian diet. So this is often confused with a vegan diet, which we'll talk about later. But a vegetarian diet mostly is a diet that is consuming little animal products as possible. So this is often limiting your intake of fish, meat, and seafood. There are different types of vegetarian. You have your pescatarian, who still consumes fish. You have your ovo-lacto-vegetarian, who still consumes egg and milk. And you also have your ovo-vegetarian, who just consumes egg, and a lacto-vegetarian, who just consumes milk. And I know it's quite confusing, but just remember that a vegetarian usually doesn't consume meat products. Number 4, vegan. So this is the one that we often confuse with vegetarian. But the difference with a vegan diet is not only focusing on food, but also your lifestyle and the things that you incorporate in your life, not having animal products. So we're trying to minimize as much as possible the animal products that you add into your life. Vegans often cut out meat, dairy, poultry, chicken and eggs, as well as honey, leather, silk, and other things that come from animals. That is the main difference between a vegetarian and a vegan. A vegan goes the extra mile with their things and also removing dairy, honey, and eggs from their diet. Number 5, plant-based diets. Now, when we're talking about plant-based diets, we can hear it from the name itself. Plant-based. This is a diet that is based mostly on plant sources. So it's not necessarily the same as a vegetarian or a vegan. Although most plant-based diets do consume little to no animal products, the main focus of a plant-based diet is having as much plant-based foods and protein and carbohydrates and fats as possible. So they're often going to choose your plant-based protein sources over your animal-based protein sources. Number 6, the ketogenic diet. This is very popular nowadays, especially it is often used for weight loss. But the truth about keto diet is that it was actually designed for epileptic patients. Epileptic patients were seen to have less seizures when they were doing the ketogenic diet. So what about the ketogenic diet? What is it? A ketogenic diet is a very low carbohydrate diet, only consuming 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrates a day. Those who are doing the keto diet opt for more fats and proteins in their diet. So they would be more focused on your animal products and as well as vegetable oils, avocados, coconut creams, and dairy, as these are the ones that are higher in fat. I do just want to give a little bit of a warning if you're doing the ketogenic diet that it's not really suitable for long term, and it's not the best diet that is sustainable for long-term weight loss. Number 7, fasting. So we hear this a lot. We've got intermittent fasting. We have those 5-2 fasting diets that's coming up. Continuous fasting, intermittent fasting, 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 fasting. We hear this a lot. What is it? So when we're talking about fasting, it's not necessarily a diet, but more of a meal pattern that people follow. So you would fast or not consume any food for a certain amount of time, and then have an eating window where you would be able to consume most of your food. So this is often 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of eating. It could also be 4 hours of eating and 20 hours of fasting. Or some people would fast for 2 days out of the week and eat for 5 days of the week. Intermittent fasting is usually used for weight loss and is also seen to sometimes help with insulin sensitivity for diabetics. But when we're doing intermittent fasting, I want you to consider one thing. Do you think it's sustainable for you in the long term? Does having an eating window and having to worry about when's the next time you can eat something that you find sustainable for you personally? If it's not, then I recommend just following a standard diet and making sure to get those balanced meals. But if it is, just make sure that you're getting enough nutrients throughout your day to make sure you're fueling yourself properly. Number 8, a raw food diet. And it is exactly what it sounds like, consuming mostly raw foods. Foods that are not cooked or heated over 116 degrees Fahrenheit. The main idea behind a raw food diet is that when a food item is not cooked or heated, it has the most nutrients it could possibly have. That is true for some food items, but there are some food items that actually need to be heated to release more nutrients, like your tomatoes. With cooking, it releases more of its antioxidant nutrient, lycopene, so you're able to get more of it when it's heated. One of the dangers of a raw food diet is mostly that it cuts out a lot of your possible food sources, as they would be very dangerous to eat raw. So when you're consuming a raw food diet, consult with your dietitian and your doctor before trying it out. Number 9, gluten-free diet. And we hear this a lot, especially in movies. They always ask, is there any gluten in this? Is this gluten-free? But a gluten-free diet is basically one that eliminates gluten from all foods. Now, when we're talking about gluten, we're actually talking about wheat. So gluten isn't only in your bread, but it's also in many other products that have wheat in it. So your cookies as well as your pastries. Also some food products that are processed and have wheat as an additive. So when you're going gluten-free, you usually have to eliminate all of these foods and food sources. Most of the time, we follow a gluten-free diet because we're doing it for weight loss or for health reasons. But studies have shown that most of the time when people go gluten-free, it's actually not necessary. The only time that it's necessary for you to go gluten-free is if you have a disease called celiac disease, because this disease is one that really cannot digest gluten in their diet. So it's really hard for the body to digest gluten, and it causes bloating and rashes and basically an allergic reaction. If you don't really have that reaction to gluten, it's pretty safe in your diet and will overall make sure that you have a healthy, balanced diet. And our last diet for today is the paleo diet, or the Paleolithic diet, which is also known as the Stone Age or Caveman diet. This focuses on consuming foods from legumes, beans, fruits and nuts, and basically all foods that cavemen were eating before. The thing with the Paleolithic diet is, yes, it does increase your intake of fruits and vegetables and does allow you to have more of these whole foods in your diet, but it oftentimes tells us not to consume any whole grains, because apparently it wasn't available when the cavemen were here. So when we're consuming a Paleolithic diet, also make sure that you're getting the nutrients that you need from your whole grains. So either finding substitutes or making sure that your overall nutrient profile is good. So when choosing a diet, always remember one thing. There is no one diet that is perfect for everyone and all people. Just because your sister is doing it doesn't mean it's going to work for you, because you are still very different human beings. Our DNA is different from one another, and so our diet should be as well. So make sure that you have a diet that is sustainable for you, with foods that you enjoy to eat, and of course, makes you feel your best. So those were the types of diets that I wanted to discuss for this episode. My name is Jo Sebastian. I'm a registered nutritionist and dietitian, and I'll see you in the next one.